Bingo, bango, vagina. What's up? What's happening, everybody? Welcome. This is another Brolo episode. Of the Nantzcast. What's cracking? Yeah. You're all so happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm glad you're here. What's up? Anyway, what's cracking? Hope you guys are all well. Glad to have you here. I'm chilling. Things have been, I don't know, rough the last several months, really. And that, it is what it is. But I am cautiously optimistic. It does seem to be the case that the ball is rolling uphill. At least temporarily. I don't want to overdo it and get a little overexcited or anything. But things do seem to be getting a bit easier over here in my neck of the woods. So that's a good thing. But who knows? Maybe things will take a fucking swan dive tomorrow. Who knows? It is what it is. Don't want to spend too much time thinking about that. Shit. So, what's up? What are we doing here? Well, what are you doing? I don't know. Are you working? Are you getting stuff done? Are you hanging out? Sitting around smoking a L? Putting some down? Are you throwing it back? Are you putting in work? Are you literally working? Are you chilling? Are you trying to get something done? And you got me on in the background to keep the tinnitus at bay. Who knows? I don't. But yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. I am procrastinating on some other stuff, but it's a good thing because I'm actually trying to get stuff done. So anyway, I hope you all had a good weekend. I know it's weird to do that on the internet, to kind of tie stuff down to set dates. It's definitely weird because this kind of lives forever. And now, content, episodes, videos, stuff like that does kind of have a shelf life. Like it kind of has like an initial, like when it comes out, people engage with it or whatever. And then everything kind of drops off. But there's still there's always people who trickle into stuff and will watch stuff way, way, way later. So it is a bit absurd to try to tie stuff to set dates, concrete dates, here on the internet. But also it's a hard habit to break. That's a thing that we do as people who kind of exist in a shared social world. We have a calendar, and we can't help but tie things to that calendar because that calendar is kind of like the transcendental field of our misery and our exploitation, but also, our dreams and our joys and our hopes. Everything is kind of tied to the calendar. You got to go to work. You got to do the thing. You got to be at the scheduled meeting, or you got to hit the deadline, or you got to this, or you got to that. Or hey, it's the weekend. You get to catch a break. You get to sleep in. For those of you who like to sleep in, sleeping in is weird, man. Sleeping in is a hard thing to do. Yeah, sleep is just a hard thing in general. Actually, it was brought to my attention recently that not everybody in the world knows about Wugazi. Now, I might have to might have to do this. I kind of don't want to do this, but no, you know what? I'm going to. I'm going to do this. So, Wugazi. Now, it was recently brought to my attention that not everybody knows about Wugazi. And of course, not everybody knows about Wugazi. It would be absurd to expect everyone to know about Wugazi. And in fact, that's part of the appeal of Wugazi. That Wugazi is this kind of underground thing, internet phenomenon, kind of really niche in-group kind of thing. That's part of the appeal. That's part of the enjoyment of it, is that it's so niche that it's like, oh yeah, I have street cred because I fuck with this. And that's silly. But it's also true. But it was brought to my attention that someone I expected to know Wugazi didn't know Wugazi. And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then I was like, damn, I wish I could go back to the first time I heard Wugazi again, because it was mind-blowing. I was like, oh, man, this is the greatest thing in the world. And I do think that Wugazi represents like one of the top 10 greatest things, like the height of modernity, like the height of the accomplishments of humankind. I really do. I'm not being facetious. I really do think this is one of the greatest things humankind has ever achieved, because it relies on so many different branches of human activity, creativity, industry, progress, drive, determination, passion, like all these things, to me, culminate in Wugazi. Now, what is Wugazi? You might even be unsure of what I'm saying. You might be like, what word is he saying? I'm saying Wugazi. Wu, like Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang is for the children. And Gazi, like Fugazi. Now, maybe there's some of you who know that Fugazi means like fake, what the kids are calling dupe nowadays. But Fugazi is also one of the dopest hardcore bands ever. Wu-Tang is one of the dopest hip-hop collectives ever. And Fugazi is one of the dopest hardcore bands ever. Or just punk bands in general, I guess. And Wugazi is a mashup. Someone decided years and years and years ago that they were going to take it upon themselves to mash up Wu-Tang and Fugazi, and the world will never be the same. Thank you so very much for doing God's work, for doing the Lord's work. Oh shit. I should have been in studio mode. Let's go back to this. Switch back over. And then I'll get this set up over here. And I'm actually going to share Wugazi with you all. And the reason I'm doing this is because I mentioned sleep. And this song is called Sleep Rules Everything Around Me. It's kind of like Cash Rules Everything Around Me, except it's not. And it is just absolutely one of, like, it's just such a beautiful song. It really is. Like, it's just like, that is beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. Let's see. That looks decent. Yeah, dead air. Podcast listeners, dead air. So if you're just listening, I'm dicking around with video stuff so I can share the video. But there's really no reason to, because it's not an actual video. It's just a fucking yellow square. But here we go, folks. This is Wugazi, Sleep Rules Everything Around Me. One of the most beautiful songs, in my opinion. One of the heights of modern human. For your listening pleasure. Sleep Rules Everything Around Me. Wugazi, 13 Chambers. Here we go.
I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job, had second hands. Moms bounced on old men, so then we moved to Shaolin Land. A young youth, you're rocking the go-to, no goose. Only way I begin to G-York was drug loot. And let's start it like this, son. Rolling with this one and that one, pulling out gats for fun. But it was just a dream for the teen who was a fiend. Started smoking wools at 16 and running up in gates and doing hits for high stakes, making my way off fire escapes. No question I was speed for cracks and weed. The combination made my eyes bleed. No question I would flow off and try to get the dough off. Sticking up right boys on board court. My life got no better. Same damn low sweater. Times is rough and tough like leather. Figured out I went the wrong route, so I got with a sick tight click and went all out. Catching keys from cross seas, rolling in MPVs. Every week we made 40 G's. Yo, brothers, respect mine. I ain't gonna take now. Bow, move from the gate. I'm so tired. She broke out of me. No more struggle. No more energy. It's been 22.
All right, I got to stop now. But boy, howdy, I love that track. And I love Wugazi. Wugazi. Now, you should, if that sounded cool, you should go check it out on the internet. Word on the street is you can buy Wugazi. I don't know. I've only ever heard it on the internet. So anyway, it was recently brought to my attention that not everybody knows all the little niche stuff that I'm into. And that's, I mean, of course. But also that's like weird, like when you're confronted with it. Like you know that's part of why that's the hipster thing, right? Like I was into that before it was cool. Look at me, I'm so cool. I have this like hidden secret knowledge. I'm in on the joke, you know, everyone else is not. I'm an insider, the shibboleth, right? Like we know academically, intellectually how that stuff goes, but when you're confronted with it, like in an embodied situation in the moment, it's a bit, I don't know, uncanny. It's like, and not with this specifically, because I like this is hyper niche. And it was just like I was talking about it with someone, and they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh shit, you're one of the few people I expected to actually like be in on this." Because Homeboy's cool, and Homeboy's tapped in. But it was just like, oh, okay, cool. And then we shared it and talked about it. Or then I shared it and then we talked about it a little bit. So this is not the situation I'm talking about, but it caused me to reflect on other situations when you're kind of confronted with this. And it is a bit more uncanny. Like, I don't know, like, hey, Mikey, try it. Mikey will try anything. And, you know, shout out Mikey, not you, but you also, you know what I'm talking about, the old Life commercials. Or I don't know, man, like Saved by the Bell. Woke up in the morning and something. Don't think I'm going to make it on time. Like that's such a normalized thing for me in my life and, you know, people around my age that I can't imagine talking to someone, you know, my age who wouldn't know that song. It would just be like so fucking weird. But there's stuff that comes up all the time. I definitely grew up a latchkey kid. a rubber checkbook kid. And I was kind of like, I was a TV kid too, you know, like I watched TV all the time, watched TV and read books and shit on my own all the time. So I do run into people who I say something, I make a reference that I rely on to, I guess, to be filler. Because it is ultimately kind of empty and meaningless. Although you can definitely use, you know, cultural objects, pop culture objects, whatever. You can use them in a serious, meaningful way. But often it comes up as just kind of like empty filler, you know, making a fucking joke to fill the silence or whatever. And it just kind of falls flat and it's a little bit weird. And I don't know, it's a weird thing. And it, I think for me, always kind of every time it happens, because it definitely happens a lot, because I'm definitely one of those guys, one of those fucking cool guys that makes dumb jokes all the time. By the way, listener, you have up dog on your head. And then you're supposed to be like, "What's up, dog?" And I'm gonna be like, "I don't know, what's up with you?" Fucking yeah, that was funny. But no, when it does happen, I think it kind of inspires me to reflect on what is the purpose of, you know, making that joke or making that reference or whatever. And I think often, like I said, I think often it's just like empty filler to drown out the silence. Although I think sometimes it's like a genuine attempt to build a social bond with a person or strengthen a social bond with a person. But it's so weird that we rely on commodities, because they are commodities. TV shows and movies and pop culture objects. They're commodities. Like, I don't do that with like sentimental objects with very many people. Like my brother and I, although it is true that my brother and I, like one of the most sentimental things in that I can think of, and it does often come up, but one of the most sentimental things I can think of is on the VHS of the Ninja Turtles, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Can't remember if it was the first one or the second one. We watched the shit out of both of them. I think those two movies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, together, I don't know, might be my favorite childhood movie. Maybe not. I don't know. But there was a fucking Pizza Hut commercial on the front on the VHS. And it might have been on both. Who knows? I don't know. I don't remember. But it's a song. And it's just a song about baseball. And it's like maybe a minute long. And I've looked it up on YouTube dozens of times. I've listened to it. I get emotional when I listen to it. I get emotional when I sing it. And, you know, my brother and I, we're both older dudes now, and we both still make reference to that song because it brings us back to being kids when we lived in a simpler world. So that is ultimately, it's a commodity. It's a fucking advertisement for Pizza Hut on the front of a Ninja Turtles movie. And it's funny because they eat Domino's pizza in those movies, not Pizza Hut. But Domino's was not as popular, I guess, where I lived. Pizza Hut was, and I don't know, or where I lived, I guess they didn't do regional advertisements on VHS films, huh? Because those were like nationally distributed. But anyway, it is funny that there's a Pizza Hut commercial in front of a movie where they eat Domino's pizza. But yeah, it takes us back to a simpler time, where that's what we would do, you know? Every once in a while, we'd get to order pizza and sit around and watch Ninja Turtles. And that was a little happy moment. And so we turned that commercial object, the commodity, into a sentimental object. But there's also other sentimental objects. Like I have a rock that's extremely sentimental to me. And it is a totally useless object. But because there is this different type of value that I've attached to it, it's special to me and it's extremely valuable to me. But I don't like show other people, hey, look at this cool fucking rock. In fact, I've never talked about this rock and I've never shared knowledge of it with anyone. But it's very special, very sentimental to me. I've had it with me for close to 2 decades at this point. And it's never that far away from me, but I also never talk about it. But that's like a sentimental object that I would share with someone were it appropriate. I mean, there's other things too, like little keepsakes and shit. Like, if, I don't know, say your grandpa carved you a little horse out of wood or some shit, and like that would be a sentimental keepsake object that you kept with you, and you know, your siblings or your parents or your nieces and nephews or aunts and uncles or cousins or whatever, like you would have a small in group who had knowledge of this sentimental object. And that is to like strengthen the social bond. And that has, you know, why is it sentimental? Well, we can get into, you know, symbolic exchange. We can get into the aura of originality. We can get into, you know, gifts and counter gifts. And we can do Walter Benjamin, Marcel Mauss, Baudrillard, whatever. I think even Walter Benjamin would give us some insight into why is this object valuable, because it has some kind of human energy poured into it, and not just physical, not just labor power, but actual sentimental energy. So there's something of the human living inside the object, and that's what objects are. And then the commodity is the total like inversion of that. The commodity is this thing that has no inherent value, or not to say that sentimental objects have inherent value, but has no value outside of ultimately exchange. Or even now in the world we live in today, it's not even exchange. It's the projection of exchange. It's virtual exchange, and not virtual in the sense of digital exchange, virtual in the sense of there is the possibility that this object might be exchanged. Therefore, this object bears X amount of value, blah, 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 blah. So when we use commodities, when we make references to TVs, movies, songs, old commercials, you know, like 877-95 Jenny or whatever, or it's my money and I want it now. A lot of the time that's kind of empty filler. I think sometimes it can be a genuine kind of attempt at social activity, social congress. But yeah, so I don't think it's a dichotomy. I don't think it's a hard binary, black or white. You should not ever make references to old TV shows, because I think it can be awesome. Because just like with my brother and I, like we reference a fucking commercial on a VHS tape from 30 something fucking years ago, and it's one of the most sentimental things ever. So I'm not saying never do it. I'm just saying you should, I don't know. For me anyway, I'm not saying you should anything. You should fucking, I'm not that guy. I'm not trying to say you should anything. I'm trying to say for me, it does prompt reflection, and not always, but sometimes it does prompt reflection. And that's, I guess, what I'm doing right now. I'm reflecting. So welcome to that. Welcome to the Nance class, Nance cast, reflexivity hour. But anyway, I hope it's Monday for me. And like I said, I am procrastinating. And that's a good thing, because I actually have, you know, stuff to do, stuff that I'm working on, and to take some time out from doing that to just sit around and do this, you know, procrastination, right? Because I am, you know, this is ultimately a vanity exercise or whatever. I'm doing this for my own edification, not doing this for you. This is total self-gratification, but it's also procrastination from other stuff, and that's a good thing. Sometimes you should procrastinate. But yeah, Monday for me, I had a good weekend. I hope you all had good weekends. I'm looking forward to this coming weekend as well. I got some exciting stuff going on this coming weekend, so I'm definitely excited about that. And all those things. But this weekend was it was the third lecture in Mikey's ongoing Zizek Land and the Singularity course at Philosophy Portal. So that was good. I enjoyed it. It was a great lecture talking about largely Zizek's Hegel and a Wired Brain. It's an excellent book. And I was kind of thinking about it today, and I was like, well, yeah, that book is I guess you could say it is about like artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence or super intelligence or whatever. I guess it is about that, but it's also more about like specifically the human side of that equation. Like it really is more about well, not the human side of that equation, but it really is more about like the human in this era of the wired brain and AI and AGI and stuff like that. And I think it's worthwhile to make that distinction. In the lecture that was excellent, I don't want to reiterate any of the things. I'm reflecting, I'm thinking about those things. But I don't want to talk about them too much at all, because if you're interested, you should definitely go sign up. Go check out philosophyportal.online. Go to patreon.com/thedangerousmaybe. Check it out. Sign up for the course. You can get access to the lectures even if you don't have time to go to the lectures live. Next weekend will be the final lecture in the series, and you can retain access to the lectures and the discussion periods. So you should definitely do that. Head on over to Patreon. I'll put the link in the description, and sign up for to get access to the lectures and the discussions, because I think it's fucking great. I think it's excellent. But in the discussion portion, there was a lot of, I don't know, people talking about, I think, artificial general intelligence, and not so much talking about AI capital, AI-TechnoCapital. And I don't know, I guess I didn't realize how careful I guess I should be when discussing, and how much I already kind of like agree with Mikey. So I guess I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who disagrees with Mikey, I guess is what I'm trying to do. And I guess I just realized how much I already agreed with Mikey on these things. Although, like, we agree on an awful lot. That's why I think we've been able to work so well together, and like thinking about this stuff and trying to figure this stuff out, but trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who doesn't already share our presuppositions. Trying to be critical. And I think it's an important distinction to make. AI-TechnoCapital is not necessarily the same thing as an artificial general intelligence, or an intelligence explosion or whatever. I do think we are inside of a decade of takeoff. And whatever that looks like, I don't think anybody can know what that looks like. And I know I tend toward like the doomer, alarmist, pessimist talking points at least. I think I am. I am maybe almost convinced that it's too late. Maybe I'm almost convinced that we've already lost the war for the future. Although if that were true, why would I spend so much time thinking about it and you know, trying to have conversations about it? I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia. Maybe I'm thinking back, reflecting on lost futures. I don't fucking know. I'm not here to try to pick myself apart. Hi friends, how are you? If you're like me, you're not worried about the future at all. You think everything's going to be awesome and will be all right, and we can all live happily ever after in a wonderful future brought to you by our glorious AI overlords. And that's really cool. The thing is, folks, I've heard some naysayers recently talking about the horrors or the potential horrors of AI, and it just really confused me because I was like, oh, wow, I thought AI is going to be super cool and awesome, and we're going to have flying cars and hoverboards and the USS Enterprise, and everything's going to just fucking be rad, dude. What's up, man? What's going on? What are you talking about? Well, here's the deal, folks. You can head on over to philosophyportal.online right now and or patreon.com/thedangerousmaybe, and you can sign up for Michael Downs' course, Land, Zizek, and the Singularity, where he'll tell you all about visions of our dark future. And we'll ask the question, is there something we can do before it's too late? Gee, I hope so. Anyway, friends, I'll go ahead and put the link below, and you can click on that link and get access to all the lectures and discussion sessions. Have a good day, and remember, don't eat yellow snow. I mean, although, yeah, I guess that's what I am doing, is trying to pick myself apart. But you, dear reader, are probably far better at that than I could ever be. So have at it. Pick me apart. But I do think with AI-TechnoCapital, we're pretty well fucked. But that's not the same thing as like speculating on what is artificial general intelligence or what will artificial general intelligence be or what could it be. Talking about AI-TechnoCapital is not the same thing as kind of speculating about what could our future be like. I mean, I also do sit around and think, man, won't it be cool when if I live long enough, where I can just go and plug my body into the interface and say, cure me, machine, and the machine will cure me. And I can have the molecular fabricator, print me free food. And every time I break a skateboard, I can just, molecularly assemble a brand new fucking skateboard or whatever. Like I also sit around and think about that. Star Trek, The Next Generation type stuff. And I think it would be totally cool, and I think it would be awesome. And I do think that digital, in quotes, because I don't know what it should be called, what it would be called. I do think that subjectivity is substrate independent. So mind, I think mind is substrate independent. I think it's true that intelligence is substrate independent, but I posit that there is a difference between subjectivity and intelligence, or mind and bare intellect. But I think both are substrate independent, because it just doesn't make sense to say that there's some special qualities of, human brain matter, or animal brain matter, neuronal tissue, whatever, that allows subjectivity to exist, that it just couldn't exist in anything else. I think that's silly. That doesn't make sense. But intelligence and subjectivity are not the same thing. But it's also true that like intelligence already exists in, you know, AI, in the LLMs, in the models, in the algorithms, in the technology that we already have access to. I think intelligence exists in my toaster and in the thermostat. I think that's a fair way to characterize intelligence, like the ability to achieve a goal in an environment, right? And general intelligence would be the ability to generalize and achieve X goal in X environment, or in goal in environment. Whereas in would be any number, in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Like intelligence is the ability to achieve goals in the environment. So where you presuppose a goal or a set of goals, and you presuppose an environment or a set of environments. General intelligence is when you make the leap and it's, non-specified goals in non-specified environment. We're not at general intelligence yet. I think just like intelligence is substrate independent, I think general intelligence is substrate independent. I think subjectivity is substrate independent. So I think eventually, I don't think there's any reason robots won't wake up one day and be subjects, split subjects in the way that we conceive of human subjectivity. And that's not the same thing as artificial general intelligence either. But anyway, I kind of spinning out of control here. What are we talking about? There are people who are AI doomers. I'm probably fit into that camp. Who think AI is gonna just kill us, like the Rocco's basilisk thing. And then there are people who are AI doomers who think it's just a flash in the pan. It's going to lead to nothing but more commodities, more churn, more exploitation, less and less economic power and viability for the actual humans, until the humans are essentially innovated out of existence. I think I fit more in that camp. I don't go for the Rocco's basilisk thing, where Rocco's basilisk is basically, creating an embodied God, or in Mikey's terms, creating an unbarred big other in the real, creating an AI God that would then hold it against you if you didn't do work to try to bring it about, or if you were like me over here, one of the doomers and naysayers. So from the perspective of the basilisk, I would actually be like a vile Satanist. And since that God would actually exist in the real world, that God would have the power to punish me or even kill me. That's a camp of doomers that I don't agree with. The other camp of doomers is the ones who just think like, yeah, dude, it's all just kind of a shiny object, and it leads to more churn, more economic overturning, more exploitation, and ultimately it's just going to fill up all the space, convert all the resources into waste, and we are going to essentially die. We're going to, innovate ourselves out of existence. Innovate in quotes, because I don't think any real innovation has been going on, largely on the front of what gets called AI these days, which is largely large language models that are just there for economic activity, to make stuff, in quotes, cheaper, because it's not actually cheaper if you look at the total cost, but it's to lower the cost on the side of the producers, and it actually ratchets up the cost on the side of us. And we're not even consumers anymore, because consumers are largely other businesses and other kind of players that are already in the industry. It's the human centipede, except it's the inhuman centipede. They are feeding on their own feces at this point. and they're just kind of circulating numbers in this kind of digital space, and there's no real product. There's AI slap videos of Will Smith eating fucking spaghetti. And there's songs. There's 50 Cent songs that get turned into like 1950s soul music versions. I don't fucking know, man. I watched a Joe Rogan episode where he was just going on and on and on and on and on about how good AI music is now, and I was like, dude, holy shit, dude, we're fucked. We're doomed. But the real product is the churn itself. Like, that's the real product that's being produced. It's this kind of digital cyclone. It's no longer oil, although I mean it ultimately does come back to the oil in that case with the cyclone. Shout out Reza, Cyclonopedia. The petroleum cyclone, but it's not just petroleum. It's also rare earth minerals. It's also the damming of rivers and the getting rid of potable water for people for both power generation, hydroelectric power generation, and also just cooling of these data centers and stuff like that. So while, the cyclone was very insightful, I think we need to go beyond that and actually look at how all of our resources are being turned into this waste, this output that is useless to us, but it's extremely useful from the perspective of capital, techno-capital, AI-techno-capital at this point. And it's all just the churn. It's all just the endless cycling of data, of information, of numbers, of imaginary dollars and imaginary value and worth. And the cost of that keeps going up. But the price to make that continue to happen for the capitalists has been going down and down and down and down and down. And I think we're kind of in a system, in a cycle that's almost locked in to continuing to do what it does until we cook the fucking planet. There's no jobs for any of us. There's no more natural resources. There's no ecosystem, total ecological collapse. I'm in that camp. And I'm sure there are, many other species of AI doomer. But I'm also not saying like AI can never necessarily develop. I do think we might hit AGI. We might hit artificial general intelligence. We might. And I do think we're inside of a decade of hitting that. So I don't know. Is it crazy for me to be saying the world is going to end in a decade? Probably. That's probably a crazy thing to say. The world's probably not going to come to an end in a decade. But I think that's the tendency as I see it. So, but even if we get artificial general intelligence, then, or if and when, or when and if, I don't know. Say we get there. Say we hit 2032 and we achieve liftoff. We is an absurd word to say there, but someone in some lab somewhere achieves liftoff. Then what do we do? Is this artificial general intelligence our friend? Is it our enemy? Is it Rocco's basilisk? I don't think it would be. I don't know. But that's not my main concern, because even if we make it there, we still have to contend with the world that we created. We still have to contend with the world with, billions of people who are just struggling and suffering and dying. Like I just like that's the fucking problem with AI-TechnoCapital. It's not to make this hard, necessary claim that there is this necessary thing about AI that's bad. Because I don't think that's true. I think AI could potentially be the most fucking awesome thing in the world. But the way the world works right now, the pathway that we're on to achieve all this greatness, once again in quotes, the pathway that we're on, I think, does set us on a necessary track of doom. And I don't think that's, I just don't know how clear that is for people who don't already agree with me and who don't already share my presuppositions. AI-TechnoCapital is what we have in front of us. It is the world of ChatGPT and all the other LLMs. It is the world where white-collar jobs are being offloaded onto these LLMs, and where once they have appropriate robotics, blue-collar jobs will be offloaded onto these intelligence models that, whether they're pre-programmed with the required set of job duties to perform the jobs that they replace, or whether they do develop some kind of like back propagation training system where they can have one robot be more of a generalist, or you have a set of 100 prescribed jobs and functions or whatever, and then that's model A, and then model B would have a set of 100 different functions and operations or whatever. That world, there's no future for us. What are we gonna do at that point? Like, you can't organize labor at that point because it's the robots, it's the LLMs. They're not gonna fucking organize with us. Now maybe an AGI would, maybe not, who knows? And maybe a digital subject would, but they're not building AGIs and they're not building digital subjects. They're building extremely convincing large language models. They're building extremely convincing toasters that look an awful lot like us, but all they do is this rote mechanistic function. They're pure function. It's just a bunch of tables and toasters. And then what? What do we do? I think it's interesting to think about if we do get around to getting some type of like universal basic income or like universal basic welfare, something like that. It would be interesting to think about consumer organizing, because in that world where they do keep us around, and the reason I was going to say the reason they've kept us around this long, that's extreme and that's exaggeration and that's hyperbole, but it's also, there's a kernel of truth to it. Like right now, surplus value comes from labor. Yeah, but it comes from labor presupposing exchange, and it comes from labor presupposing virtual exchange. So it's not as easy as just saying, labor is the sole source of value. Labor is the source of value within this capitalist framework. The capitalist framework presupposes exchange and the potential for future exchange. I don't know. If you're really into Marx and you disagree with me on that, tell me why I'm wrong about that. And if you agree with me on that, maybe you should read more Marx until you disagree with me on that. I don't know. But anyway, labor or data is also a source of surplus value. And data doesn't come from labor per se. Data comes from going about your daily life. So while you're engaged in labor, you are producing data. So you could make the argument that, well, yeah, it's still labor ultimately. But also while you're engaged in commuting to and from work, and while you're engaged in planning your weekend getaway, and while you're engaged in sleeping, if you have, any connected devices They all, even your fucking phone, if you sleep with your phone in your room, a lot of these new phones, and it's not brand new, it's going back several years, have like automatic bedtime mode detection that like when you place your phone face down or whatever, it goes into like bedtime mode. And they have passive sensors that legit, like they do this. This is not a conspiracy, motherfuckers. This is true. Like they listen for like, are you snoring? What are your breathing patterns? How much noise do you make in your sleep? Blah, blah, blah. Like phones and devices already do this. What time did you turn your TV off? You know, are you wearing a smartwatch? They're checking your biometrics. They're doing this. Like there's every little thing you do. And now, you know, here in America, cities are being enveloped by AI cameras. Now, in Europe, it's different. They've been there for a bit longer because in many European cities they have different norms towards like digital surveillance or whatever. Like you guys remember when 28 Days Later came out? That zombie movie with Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy is so fucking sexy, dude. He's so pretty. He's almost too pretty. But when that movie came out, people were like, "Oh, this movie looks like shit. Why does this movie look like shit?" Well, because it was filmed because it was recorded on digital cameras. Because they wanted to make it look a certain way, and the way they wanted to make it look was more in line with like the surveillance cameras that were just covering, I guess, London, maybe more parts of the UK, but London for sure. Like London's been blanketed in cameras for a long time, but it's happening here in America too. Shout out Ben Jordan, BENN Jordan on YouTube. He made a cool video recently about AI cameras and specifically like the AI license plate reader cameras. Ben Jordan's dope. He does dope stuff on the internet. Check him out. He talks about like poisoning the AIs. And I think that's fucking cool. I think that's absolutely valid. So check him out. But yeah, like driving around your city with these AI cameras, they have license plate detection, or even walking around and riding your bike around and skateboarding. They have face detection and gate detection and all this stuff. Like everything you do creates data, either because you're actively engaged in an activity or because you're actively not engaging in an activity, either online or in the physical world too, because they have cameras and sensors that can track what you're doing and when you're doing it and how you're doing it and how long you're doing it. So that's data, and data is extremely valuable. Data might be the new petroleum, right? So maybe the cyclone isn't just, you know, the black oil, but it's also the invisible data cyclone. I don't know. And it also comes from your consumption habits. Like, what did you buy on Amazon? What did you scroll on social media? How long did you scroll on social media? Did you engage with the content that you saw on social media? Did you give it an upvote or a downvote? Did you leave a comment? Did you share it? Did you buy that thing on Amazon? Did you buy that thing on Walmart.com? Did you go to Airbnb or did you go to Trivago? Like all of your consumption habits are generating data. But also all of your passive habits also generate data in this way. And that is an extremely valuable thing. Data, my friends, is extremely, extremely, extremely valuable. So labor is no longer the sole source of surplus value, unless you want to call everything, even sleeping, labor. Which, I mean, I think there are some people that do that. They're like, I think they're missing the point, but they do try to do this thing where, yeah, everything, every productive activity or whatever is labor, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't want to strawman anybody or whatever, but yeah, I don't think most people would consider sleeping or purchasing ice cream or watching TV or watching, movies, or listening to music, or riding a bike, or driving to the doctor's office, or any of this, I don't think they would consider that labor. So we have to come up with a new idea. Like, if you want to go into the future thinking about organizing, which is totally valid, and shout out to the Marxists out there who are just like, we can't give up our leverage. We can't give up the only thing protecting us. Because it's fucking true, dude. We can't. We shouldn't. But also, you can't solely focus on labor anymore. You have to focus on consumption. You also have to focus on just passive being, because just passive being generates data, generates the fuel of this new machine. But I definitely lost the thread. I definitely forgot what I was talking about. I know I was talking about being a doomer versus being... I don't want to accuse anyone of being an optimist. But I was talking about, like, yeah, I am a doomer because I think we're fucked. I think capital has its greasy little mitts, its invisible hands all over everything at this point. I don't think we're necessarily fucked, but I think we're currently fucked and we have to figure something else out. And there are people who disagree. But I think that there are people who disagree because they come down on this side of like, they think I'm saying, like, AGI is impossible. Or they think I'm saying digital subjectivity is impossible. I'm not saying that. I think it's entirely possible. And I think we're inside of a decade of seeing artificial general intelligence. But I don't know if human society is resilient enough to make it out of the coming conflagration, the coming crises, the coming meta crisis, the coming collapse, meta collapse. People are probably tired of me referencing Posadism. But I do think there's something there that always, maybe it just tickles me. Maybe because, like, they are doomers and they're like, yeah, we're fucked. Like, the only thing that can save us is nuclear war. I wouldn't say the only thing that can save us is nuclear war. I don't think I like the idea of saying we have to go to war. Because that leaves it open to saying, well, we should go to war. And I don't know, I just don't like war. A lot of people that talk about going to war haven't been to war. I have, and it sucks. It's not the coolest thing in the world. I don't recommend it. Not cool. I think there's probably a better way to figure it out. And if we can't figure it out, then maybe we didn't deserve to figure it out. If we have to make recourse to fucking global war, then maybe we don't deserve to survive. But there is still something that, like, yeah, collapse is the only thing that can save us. Because, like, if we don't have radical uprooting of capital and of the system that we live within right now and that we're trying to survive, I don't think we're going to make it. Because capital, AI-TechnoCapital, it just has its hooks in so fucking deep right now. And people are not, I don't know, I don't want to grandstand and moralize and stuff like that. I guess I do probably a lot of that. But I don't want to do that right now. But I just think there's, like, a better way. And I think it's probably almost too late for us to figure that out. But I'm not saying that any of this is necessary. And I think for me, I guess that's just me attempting to articulate that. And I definitely failed to do so. but it was an attempt. And stemming from largely the discussion that followed Mikey's lecture yesterday, because there were some people kind of talking about like, well, I think you're getting too much of this from Hollywood, and I think, yeah, and I mean, even when we talked to Nick in one of the videos, I can't remember which video it was, but even he was like, I think it's all going to be far less spectacular than this kind of phantasmatic vision of it. And that's probably true. It probably won't be this global conflagration. It'll probably just be more of the same. The same decay that's been rotting our cities and also our rural areas. Let's not forget about the rural rot. Everyone likes to talk about, oh, cities are so bad and cities are so decrepit. And yeah, that's true. There's a lot of cities that have fallen to shit once they've been abandoned by capital. But a lot of our rural areas have been gutted by capital as well. A lot of people without access to healthcare, without access to education, without access to nutrition, and nothing but, drug habits. They don't even have access to employment, people who like to glorify, moving to a small town. Motherfucker, have you been to a small town lately? You know what I'm saying? And also suburban rot. You go to the suburbs and what do you see? You see just a bunch of unhealthy, unhappy people slowly dying. You see children becoming more and more plugged in to the internet. You see a lot of fucking violence, a lot of senseless, unimaginable things happen in the suburbs. It's like in the suburbs, no one can hear you scream. Like, that's a reference. That's a pop culture reference. In space, no one can hear you scream. That was like spooky and scary and terrifying. And like when I was a kid, that was fascinating. I was like, oh, that's true. In space, no one can hear you scream because you're in space. It's, a vacuum. Sound waves don't travel in a vacuum. And it's from the Alien movie, for those of you that aren't aware of everything I'm aware of already. How dare you have never watched the Alien movies? And that wasn't in the movie. That was the tagline. How dare you not be plugged into the same niche consumer commodity identity that I have? How dare you? But no, like the same way that was like eerie and spooky and fascinating to me as a kid. The suburbs are eerie and spooky and fascinating to me as an adult. And I am a suburbanite. I live in the suburbs. They're horrible. They're miserable. Just today, I was taking a little walk. And I was thinking, well, I think Arizona suburbs, I don't know. For me, I'm always going to do this thing where I'm like, my suburbs are different than your suburbs. But I was specifically like, man, I miss trees. When I was a kid growing up in Phoenix, there were trees in some of the houses. Some of the houses had grass in their front yard. And that's probably not special for most people listening. But growing up in Phoenix, there's a lot of, they call it xeriscaping. Not Z with a Z, but zero with an X. And it's like desert landscaping. So, rocks and cactus and bushes and shit like that. That's popular here in the Phoenix area, in like Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Southern California. It's a popular thing to do. Maybe it's popular in Spain. I don't know. Portugal, maybe. But there was still, like, in the neighborhoods, there were still houses that had like grass front yards and like trees in their front yards and shit like that. And now out here in my suburbs, it's just like stucco and rocks and some trees, but not big, healthy trees. Small, sickly trees. And I was just thinking today, like, man, I miss trees. And trees are kind of standing in for, I guess, the nostalgia of simpler times. I definitely do miss being a kid. Mikey was talking about this too, nostalgia and stuff like that. wanting to go home, and also simultaneously fully onboarding the knowledge that you were never home to begin with. You didn't belong at home back when you were at home, in quotes. And yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's how, like, we have to develop a kind of attunement toward the idea of home. That even if you were able to go home, you wouldn't belong. But nevertheless, you can still want to be home. Because the species of non-belonging that happens at home is different from the species of non-belonging that happens in today's hyper-connected world, where we're nothing but little productive nodes in this vast global network, ultimately, of data, and we will all soon be replaced by robots. Like, once the robots are good enough, and once these models are good enough, they will absolutely replace you, because it's cheaper for them. Now, on balance, for everyone, it's far more expensive. The cost skyrockets. The cost is a parabolic fucking curve, right? It's just like, you can't comprehend the cost. But from the perspective of capital, it's cheaper. The price is lower. And so they will absolutely replace you until none of us have jobs. None of us have anything to do but just sit around and be little nodes in this global network. Now, I do think it would be cool if they would provide us with some type of UBI. I do think it's cool to think about new modes of organizing and new goals of organizing in the future, you know, not as labor power, but as, I don't know, human power. I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not the guy who's gonna come up with the answer, but like something like consumer organizing, and not, you know, consumer organizing. What does that sound like? Well, that sounds like boycotts, and boycotts are kind of whack, I think. I don't believe in consumer side activism. But I don't know. They've also probably been extremely effective in some respects. So I'm not throwing that baby out with that bathwater. I'm just saying that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, viewing value. Value has changed. Value has been updated. We're on value 3.0 now, folks. It's not just coming from labor power, unless you want to qualify still being alive as labor power, because you could, right? Like, you could do this labor ontology. You could do this thing where it's like every type of metabolic activity is labor power, regardless of if it's, you know, in service of a capitalist or in service of the sovereign, you know, subject. It's a blah, 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 blah. I'm not doing that. Let's agree that labor power is work. And let's agree that work is working for a fucking wage. It's not just that. It's everything you do generates value now from the perspective of capital. So come up with some new fancy fucking ideas about organizing, and I'm here for it. Right? They're like, and it's not. We also do need to find a way to downsize. We need to find a way to limit our consumption. That's an insane thing. Because again, that sounds like consumer side activism, but it's like, we have to find a way to unplug, because we are fucking plugged in, whether we want to be or not. And there's got to be a way to get off. Like, I have a smartwatch. Yes, it's true. But your phone tracks biometrics. Your phone has this sleep mode and sleep detection, and it's not every fucking phone, but it's on some of them. And it's on more and more over the last several years. And pretty soon, before you know it, it's going to be in everything. Like your TV, your phone. I have a robot vacuum too. Its name is Antonio Banderas. I got a new one. My old one was Professor Dolores Umbridge. No, it wasn't Dolores Umbridge. It was Professor Dolores O'Riordan. That was her name. She died. So we got a new one, and his name is Antonio Banderas. My robot vacuum. My computer has telemetry data. Like every fucking device, your coffee maker, your refrigerator, just everything has these sensors that track you. Not just as a consumer. It is ultimately for consumer habits. That's why they want this data. It's also for control. The government now is tapping into these things, and that's what a dystopian world, man. Like, people were all upset about, like, oh, they're spying on us in the 60s and the 70s and 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And yeah, that's true, they were, but like now they're finally getting their hands in the pies of these data broker companies, and that's fucking terrifying, right? Like, Google and Meta and Amazon, like, these companies have just an unimaginable amount of data about you. And it's all geared toward consumption. It's all geared toward capital. It's all geared toward money at the end of the day. How are you going to spend money? How much money are you making? Do you have money to purchase this product? What are your shopping habits? Do you get drunk and order shit on Amazon at 3 a.m.? Or do you once a week, go out grocery shopping and then stop in at the fucking hobby store on your way home to buy the thing and blah, blah. Like, it's always been geared towards that with these companies. The government having access to this data, that's fucking scary, because now it's going to come down to, like, I think discipline is gonna have a shocking comeback here at the end of the world. Physical force, right? Juridical, draconic fucking shit, cops kicking down doors, and it's already happening, and I think it's only going to continue to intensify. But anyway, all that, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. Where's my thing? Oh shit, I got that doubled up. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm done procrastinating. Just thinking about stuff, man. Thinking about, sleep rules everything around me. Thinking about the specific difference between AI-TechnoCapital and AGI, or the prospect of AGI, and digital subjectivity. I think these are things that I need to work harder to make more explicit. So actually, soon, relatively soon, who knows what that means? I don't. Relatively soon, hopefully, you'll be able to read some more of Mikey and I's writings on kind of AI and surveillance and superego and all these things that we've been talking about for a while now. You can always go to everydayanalysis.co.uk, or you can go to Everyday Analysis on Substack and read our piece, Enjoy Your Surveillance, among many other great pieces that they published there. But yeah, hopefully soon you'll be able to read some more. And I think I want to make it a point of order, or I want to hold myself accountable to being more explicitly clear. Like, we're talking about AI-TechnoCapital, just so, because there are people who make excellent points about, the wired brain and the future. There is a utopian view, or not even utopian. There's a positive view of the future. And I don't want to say I'm foreclosing that. And I don't want to say that's impossible. Or I don't want to say that that's necessarily not what we're going to have. Because I think the people who are maybe convinced or nearly convinced of these more positive views of the future just think we're doomists and we're alarmists. We're shouting fire in a crowded theater. And I don't want them to dismiss it on those grounds. I want them to actually hear what we're saying. We're talking about AI-TechnoCapital, this super egoic machine that's turning us all ultimately into waste. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're reckoning with. That's the world we live in. We're not talking about the world that we might be living in. Although we do, this is all speculation, because who knows? Who the fuck really knows? I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, I think
think I need to make a point to just be more clear on that, so that the people don't think we're just being like Hollywood brained doomers. Although I'm definitely a Hollywood brained doomer. I'm more than that. I'm not just that. So go to like I said, Everyday Analysis if you want to read Enjoy Your Surveillance. You can check out my Substack. Enjoy an ice cold hyper coke. That was a piece I wrote about kind of the super egoic AI future world. There's some other stuff up there too. Hopefully there will be more coming soon. Go to patreon.com/thedangerousmaybe. Sign up for the course at Philosophy Portal. Go to philosophyportal.online. There's tons of other stuff too. I'm not going to be able to get through a list of stuff you should go check out. If you're listening to this, you're already tapped in. If you have any questions or whatever, hit me up. Hit me up on Substack. That's probably the most reliable way to get in contact with me. And yeah, man, I guess do your best to do your best. And we'll see you soon. Happy Monday. It's almost Halloween. It'll be Halloween soon, so you can do it, folks.